Donald Trump because they felt we needed a moral and spiritual leader for our country. That's why so many of us look to you. What about that? And what do you say to Americans who say, that's at root our problem, and how do we deal with that?
Well, I've heard a lot of Christians say, I have a hard time choosing between the lesser of two evils. It offends my moral sensibility. We've all heard that. Now, the problem with that is it doesn't take into account the reason that God gave you a brain. It's so that you can make decisions. Every day when you get out of bed and you leave the house, until you get back home and go to bed, you're making decisions between the lesser of evils because we live in an imperfect world. That's why we have that brain. So a paper cut is horrible, and nobody likes it. It stings like Dickens. But so does getting both your legs chopped off. But I bet if given the choice, you could make the right decision about which one is worse. And that's the way we have to look at this. Neither of the people who were running are spiritual titans. Nevertheless, we have to look at the principles that have been espoused in the gospel and see which one lines up better with those. Donald Trump has pledged to get rid of the Johnson Amendment, which restricts pastors from being able to speak their mind in the pulpit with the threat of them losing their 501c3 status. That doesn't make any sense. And he's pro-life. The other candidate was okay with, and I've seen the pictures, fully formed, viable baby who, if you deliver them, would be alive outside the womb. And they reach in with these forceps with curved teeth and rip the head off. I mean, I can't comprehend how a human being can countenance that. I just don't understand it. And changing the definitions of things that God has ordained and created in the Bible, I mean, it's actually pretty easy if you sit down and you start thinking about it. So we have a responsibility not to try to soothe our own sensibilities in terms of whether we like somebody or not, but in terms of our children and our grandchildren and what kind of place are we leaving for them.
Okay, Chelsea, let's go right to the calls. Folks, keep your questions brief if you would, please. Go right ahead.
Hi, Dr. Carson. Scott Saunders in Virginia Beach. My wife's a critical care nurse at DePaul Hospital, and every day she comes home and tells me about the JCO problems and what goes on at the hospital that wastes money. Are you going to be able to, since I see you turn down a cabinet position, unfortunately, are you going to be at least able to work on the Trump administration team to fix our health care?
Oh, absolutely. I've already provided them with lots of suggestions, outlines, people. That's not going to be a problem. That's high priority for both myself and for the president.
Okay, next question. Go right ahead.
Hi, Dr. Carson. This is Sam Smith. I'm a reporter with the Christian Post. Just following up on that last question, obviously Politico is reporting that you're not interested in a cabinet position. I was wondering why you're not interested in a cabinet position and if you're offered one.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've had lots of offers, but, I don't particularly want to work inside the government. I have worked effectively outside of government for a number of years now, have developed a lot of liaisons, and it's important to be able to speak exactly what you feel and not be constrained, by any administration, quite frankly. And, particularly at a time when we have media that is very biased, you need voices that can speak out the truth against them and help people to really understand what the real problems are and focus on the problems. Because, we need to be successful. This administration needs to be successful because that's how America will be successful. And we're about to go off the cliff. We've been given a reprieve, and we've got to make the best of it.
Next question. Go right ahead.
Dr. Carson, I have seen Donald Trump back up on some things that he promised during the election, and concerned if he's going to walk away from the things that he promised us that got us to vote for him, like a lot of politicians did, or is he going to stick with what he said? You know him a whole lot better than we do.
He's going to stick with the spirit of what he said, maybe not the letter of what he said. You know, for instance, talking about building a wall. But what he really wants to do is secure the border. And there are a variety of ways of doing that. But the point being that we're going to make sure that that gets done. So you can rest assured that those principles will be followed, but it may not necessarily be the exact letter of the law.
Next question. Go right ahead.
Dr. Carson, my question is, although I'm generally opposed to czars, I'm wondering if President-elect Trump is someone to deal with government efficiency and reform.
Well, that is going to be a major issue. I don't know that it requires a czar, quite frankly. What it requires is accountability. That's what's been missing in the government. People do stuff like, look what happened with the IRS. Was anybody held accountable? Of course not. In the VA, there's no real accountability. That's going to change big time. And you're going to see a lot more efficiency occur under those circumstances.
Next question. Go right ahead.
Hello, Dr. Carson. Can you tell me if you're going to remain active in the media?
Yes, I will continue to be very active, to speak out. I will continue to write. I will continue with social media, and I will continue on television.
Next question.
Go
right ahead, sir.
Dr. Carson?
Yes.
Hi, this is Jillian Little. I'm calling from Newport News. When I heard on
Yes.
this morning that you were not going to be taking a cabinet position in the Trump administration, I was highly upset. I know you know that we need people like you, and especially you, a godly man. Please reconsider.
Well, I have prayed about it, thought very carefully about it, and I feel that I could have a great deal more influence outside of the cabinet. When you take a cabinet position, you get pigeonholed into one area, and the things that we have to deal with are very broad. And I think that there are other people, many people that I've met and recommended who can fill these positions very well, and enjoy being an administrator and a bureaucrat. I would not enjoy that at all. I enjoy doing what I do now, being out there, pointing out things, battling the media, trying to get the young journalists to understand the importance of integrity in journalism. And I'll be able to continue to do all those things. Plus, I have a lot of connections in lots of different areas that will be very helpful to the administration.
Next question. Go right ahead.
Yes, this is Dr. Gwyneth Williams, Life Enrichment Ministries. My focus is African American youth. What part are you going to play in that, in reaching our communities? I've received emails that you were going to take a part in that, and how can we as leaders help and assist in that? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel. There are a number of programs. I was talking to some African American leaders in Philadelphia this morning about the programs that they're using, both housing and education. And what we're really looking for are programs that work. We want data. We want evidence that show that things work. And those kinds of things we can then begin to take and to multiply and to make them work. We also want to make sure that all of the communities, and particularly any communities that are failing, have a voice and have the ability to speak and be heard. And I'm going to try to facilitate that.
Dr. Carson, when we have a chance, I'd love to talk to you about our Project Awakening, which is a private sector approach to these problems, because as you pointed out, the problem with the government is there are certain things you are muzzled from saying, and I really believe one of the major problems in the inner city is that we have sort of pushed God out and other things have flooded in. And Absolutely. It's going to take churches and private businesses and so forth working together to solve some of these problems of family and some of the values issues that we're facing. But I'd love to get a chance to talk to you about that at some point.
Absolutely.
You tell me. I've got plenty more callers.
I can take one more.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. Go right ahead.
Dr. Carson, John Elam with Ministers Taking a Stand. I wonder who is advising Mr. Trump with regard to Christianity, and if there's ever any hope that he would make a public profession of faith that Christ is his Savior.
I think there's a very significant chance of that. We've been hoping and praying for that. He has been meeting with some well-known spiritual people. He has prayed, and he seems very receptive to that possibility. So I think it's something to really put on your prayer list. I'm looking forward to seeing that public profession in the relatively near future.
Well, Dr. Carson, look, we can't